Graham Neff, and he's right here with me. I promise you. There he is. What's going on? How you been?
Great, Pack. I loved the montage there. Just the success from last year, obviously, was, as the graphic said, since 1979-80 of 4 teams advancing to the Final 8.
Yeah.
That was a good time in the subsequent year for Tiger football as well, winning the national championship in 1981. So
freshman year for me.
Is that right?
Yeah.
How about that? Did you go down to Miami for the Nebraska?
I did, and I don't remember the night.
It
was that good.
It was that euphoric, right? Yep, got it.
It was that good. I do remember the drive back, though, because, we'll get to business here in a second.
Yep.
But when Clemson knocked off Nebraska that night, the Orange Bowl, Danny Ford wins the national championship. Everybody's going nuts. The drive back from Miami to Clemson. Again, I was a freshman.
But the game was on a Saturday or New Year's Day? What day?
Because the next day you had the crazy San Diego Charger-Miami Dolphin game, which is one of the great NFL games of all time, in the same building, at the old Orange Bowl.
Oh.
But I still remember driving back and all the flags, man. It was like all of South Carolina, I think, was in South Florida that night. And everybody was zipping up I-95, getting back. And everybody's the number one. And it was just an unbelievable road.
Your freshman year, that was your fall freshman year.
And I figured, hey, every year this is what's supposed to happen.
Well, yeah, we've had a cohort of students here at Clemson in the 2016 to 20 time frame, or 2015 to 26 straight CFPs, where that was all they knew.
Well, my 2 daughters, went here, and they both won national championships too. So, that was all part of it. It's part of the package. There's a photo in our house of all of us wearing jerseys, 81, 16, and 18.
We need to know when the grandchildren pack are coming through. That's going to be a good.
Don't look at me. I'm done. I'm tapped out. I'm done. All right, let's get to business here. When I'm driving in, when I finally got here after a crazy drive down from I-85, the first thing I noticed, again, we're situated right outside Little John. I look across the old Jervy. When, again, my freshman year, it used to be just Jervy Athletic Center. And now look at what we got going on here. You've got unbelievable stuff going on.
And that was our football center, Jervy,
right,
which was built in the early 70s, was like
everything.
One of the first athletic centers and football complexes in the country, frankly, at that time. And that was, right, like you said, everything. And so now, yes, as we've continued to develop our facility footprint in all the sports, of course, and we've talked about those over the past. And look, there's a view of that's our Watt Family Performance and Wellness Center, which is an extension off of to the right-hand side of the screen, Jervy Gym and Jervy Center, to your point, Pack. And so that's going to be really the house, the performance and wellness facility for all of our Olympic sports. So high-impact project, 18 of our 21 sports, 2 new sports these past 2 years, women's lacrosse and gymnastics, sports medicine, strength and conditioning, nutrition, prehab, rehab. That's a day-to-day facility for 18 of our 21 sports. That's ultimately replacing and extending Jervy, which has been our home for the last 50 years, which has been served us well, but this is a best-in-class. Watt Family has been a huge contributor towards that. High-impact project. We're playing volleyball in there this fall. Our first home match is coming up in a couple weeks, and then that'll open up to the rest of the teams and department this spring. Big-time project.
You mentioned women's lacrosse and gymnastics, and how about the success of those two right out of the gate? Especially, we're sitting here right now on Little John. I know you got another project we're going to talk about too, but man, gymnastics was unbelievable. Lacrosse did a great job too.
And coming off the heels of 5 years prior of softball, women's softball.
Right.
So the notion of the 3 new sports that we've started over the last 6 years, prominent women's sports, and the immediate success, but that comes into certainly people and the staff and coaches and student athletes that we recruited, and sure, facilities and infrastructure, and the Clemson brand carries, and the ACC competitive success of those sports in particular. Really, really strong. And so, out the gate, and now it's all about building the programs. Gymnastics, we had 5 home matches, 5 sellouts here at Little John. Just the energy and excitement within the community for that sport, and again, the competitive success making the NCAA has been special.
Clemson fans are special, right? That's one of the things that drew me here as a student to say, hey, that's where I'm going to go to school. But to see how softball has been embraced, gymnastics embraced, you're celebrating the 50 year of varsity women's athletics at Clemson. It's really kind of amazing how just the momentum of women's sports across the country, whether it be Clemson or on the left coast. It's wild, isn't it?
So we're
in the front row here.
Listen, no question. And again, when you're kind of inside the elephant, and that's just kind of what we know to be true at Clemson and Clemson family and IPTAY members. We had 6 sports finish in the top 15 of attendance this past year. Across the country, right? So there's just like that level of community support and interest, and ultimately the environment that creates in venues is really unique. So To your point, Pack, in 1974 is when we started women's sports programs here at Clemson. There was 4 sports. It was a little before you matriculated here. 4 sports. You know the 4 sports.
I had nothing to do with it.
Women's basketball. Four sports that were our inaugural
Right.
sports. Women's basketball, women's tennis, women's swimming was there at the time, and women's fencing was an initial
I would not have
program
gotten
here.
fencing right.
Yeah, so obviously a couple of those have transitioned, and we've added sports along the way, let alone the 3 recent ones. Women's golf finished in the Elite 8, started in 2012. And so a long history of successful invested women's sports here, celebrating the 50th anniversary of it. Will be really cool throughout the year.
Anything you can tip off there? Because I know you got stuff up your sleeve on this one.
On what?
The 50-year anniversary. We got any celebrations that can you let out of the bag yet?
Well, so we have a couple things. She will triumph is kind of our branding of the celebration. It's a play off of our alma mater, some of the phraseology in the alma mater. Right. But we are going to celebrate it, and I've told our teams as we've had our beginning of the year meetings, in all of our sports and venues, men's sports, women's sports, some football recognition. So it's not just going to be exclusive, hey, from women's basketball, team 50. So it's just going to be a thematic celebration throughout.
Okay, and we'll get to football here in a second, but we are right outside the Little John Coliseum. And I know you got some plans, too, from basketball. And, again, you had a new women's coach, Brad Brunell, coming off an unbelievable year. I saw you had the new court was unveiled the other day. But what about old Little John? What are we doing?
Well, so listen, there's a balance of, and I'm sure subsequently in our conversation of the business of college sports and investment and facilities. We're continuing to leverage our facility footprint. Little John, as you see here, that's the court change. We're building an additional operations facility, so we'll have a dedicated men's basketball and women's basketball operations practice facilities. That construction will break ground this winter. Incredibly donor supported there for both our basketball programs. As we talked about earlier, gymnastics competes in Little John. So just kind of now having 3 programs in Little John, needing more space for practice and operations is part of it. So that'll be a $40 million project that it's been in the queue in the hopper for quite some time. We're excited to get that through later this fall.
It sounds like business is pretty good.
Business is changing. Business is changing, but it is good competitively on the field at Clemson, let alone how we're continuing to invest and do our part athletically for the institution, right? So business is good for President Clements and the alignment that we have as an institution. We always talk about it. Jim's been on here and been part of the show, and we all know his view and support athletically and our board, right? That is just part of our secret sauce for sure.
All right, let's get to football. I know last week wasn't ideal as far as the start goes, but again, you got to look big picture. An ACC championship is still on the table. Whoever wins it's going to punch their ticket to the college football playoff. That's the ultimate goal, to get back and be a part of that system and so forth. From a football perspective, what's it look like through your eyes?
Yeah, would you say it wasn't an ideal start? That's a good. I'll take that phrase. Yeah, that's a good way to say it. That being said, that's a big boy matchup, right? And we know Georgia's recent success and the talent that they have. So I know certainly from coach's lens, that way to start, and now we see what it looks like, and now got to regroup for sure. We left there pretty healthy, quite frankly, which is always an important piece. Saw pieces throughout, certainly in the first half of just the on-the-field progression and talent and health that's there. And so I'm really excited to see what tomorrow night looks like here for us to take that step. Obviously, App is a big-time program coming down, and they're going to be here and loud and proud. But excited to see us play well tomorrow. And then, to your point, build into a different postseason this year in 12, and everything's on the table for us to get to Charlotte and beyond.
I think this may be the most competitive the league has been, maybe ever. I've been doing this a long, long time, and before we got to the first kickoff to watch Georgia Tech knock off Florida State, I really thought there's like 6 or 7 teams legitimately that could get to Charlotte, Clemson being, of course, one of them. Now, after just watching basically a week and a half, I'm not so sure it's not even deeper than that.
Well, and part of the branding and the message points for the league that I'll certainly carry is conference quarterbacks. And so I think a lot of that, there's just really talent and depth at that QB position throughout the league. And earlier today, your old partner in crime and a longtime buddy of mine, Wes Durham, happened to stop by the office. And Wes has got, he's not short on thoughts and perspective, but he too shared that thought of just the depth of the league. And it's week 1, and some teams have played conference games. Obviously, some haven't. We don't for a couple more weeks. But excited to get into it and get in the fray, continue to develop and grow, and I think the Tigers are going to be right there when it all said and done.
I think you got a shot. There's no question. From a fan experience, again, and we always talk about that, and that's something you're always concerned about. Expectations for folks who do have tickets to Death Valley, and again, it's going to be rocking tomorrow night with App State, who's a really good football team. Fan experience. What do you got for 24?
Well, we're sold out for tomorrow. If we've announced that or not, or we're imminently about to, let alone the subsequent NC State game. Listen, I anticipate that all 7 of our games we're going to be sold out, and that's what we're just come accustomed to at Memorial Stadium and the support of our fans. Parking is always a huge issue, and so we're continuing to balance that, and that's one of the the pros cons of construction. There's some construction fence right here we're just looking at, and that's taken about 75 spots from lot 3J pack, and so I've heard from probably about 40 of those of those 75. I'm just kidding, but my
Do
point
they
is,
know you on a first name basis from
well,
those spots?
I have my cell phone in my email, which maybe I need to rethink that. But listen, point being, like the driveway to driveway. So as we and that's where and you know this, the tailgating culture, and it's an 8:05 kick tomorrow, but our lots open at 0800 in the morning, and that's a day long affair here at Clemson. And it's so much part of the tradition, the culture, why folks are coming back, the generational piece, your daughters, to your point. And so we need to continue to foster that. So that means things in technology and experience inside the stadium, but here as much as inside the stadium, outside the stadium. And so that means parking, that means traffic and egress and experience outside as well. That's like so baked here in Clemson.
Well, I would tell you, when I drove in today, and it dawned on me as soon as I went around the corner, you see Manning and all that stuff, I was like, oh, man, the First Friday Parade. And
That's
for
right.
folks that don't know, Clemson fans will know, but for outsiders, like, what's Pac talking about? One of the great traditions, I think, is the First Friday Parade at Clemson, the Friday before the first home game. And it's a parade like nobody's business. I mean, everybody has a great time, but you can just feel the energy and the vibe driving through campus. The students are all fired up. At that first parade, you got the First Friday Parade, and it leads right in, of course, to Clemson-Stanford men's soccer right there at Riggs, right here on campus. I mean, it's a really, really great weekend.
And that's the thing, too, the engagement that President Clements will be there. We have Amy Smith, our gymnastics coach we were talking about, is she's the grand marshal of the parade. Again, really heavily student-focused and kind of led from student organizations. It's just that vibe and energy. We even feel it here kind of on this part of campus on Friday, middle of the afternoon.
Well, again, I mentioned travel and leisure, the best small college town in America. And I knew that 40 years ago.
Well, and it's continued to change, and so how do we change and evolve and grow as a town, let alone an institution, but also still holding true to keeping Clemson, something we talk about a lot.
Keep up the great work. Always a
Thanks
pleasure.
for having me.
You got it. There's our man Graham Neff running the show here at Clemson University. Quick